Hey everybody, here's chapter 13 of Iqbal. There's actually 3 more chapters, chapter 13, 14, and a very small 15. So this week I'll do 13. Oh, just a reminder, at the end of chapter 12, it said someone had thrown 2 incendiary bombs against headquarters. A man was injured and had to go to the hospital. They had sent a warning. 13. One day in the fall, the Liberation Front heard about an illegal brick factory and went to investigate. Iqbal went with them and told us about it the next day. We traveled for more than an hour in the dark. The night was cold, so we took cover under the tarp in the back of the pickup truck. We must have looked like little babies under a blanket. I wish I'd seen you. I felt like laughing, but something stopped me. Everybody felt strained. They were very serious and nervous. Nobody was about to laugh. Ashan Khan had warned us before we left. You both heard him. Be careful, be careful. This time it'll be much more difficult than usual. In fact, we had never done anything like it before. After a while, we turned off the main road onto a dirt track full of potholes. I haven't the slightest idea where we were. There was only darkness and silence, and that freezing wind that bit at our noses. We came in sight of the kiln just before dawn. There was a large level clearing, all stones and mud. There wasn't a tree to be seen, not even a blade of grass. The kiln was ugly. In the early light, it looked like a hill of bricks with a tall, thick chimney. People were already working because they can produce the most bricks in the early hours. Later on, the sun and the heat and the fatigue all take the strength from their arms. When we arrived, nobody even paused to look at us. You should have seen them. They were scattered through the clearing, almost like ghosts. Each family had its own hole where the boys used a little hoe to dig because the clay is hard. They mixed the clay with water to make round little loaves of mud. The girls fetch water from the well, which is almost a kilometer away. They go back and forth carrying a big plastic 20-liter jugs. The boys throw the clay loaves to their mothers, who knead them like bread and then throw them to their fathers. They put each one into a wooden mold, scrape away the excess, and then overturn it onto the ground, where it will dry in the sun. The bricks are in long rows that cross the clearing. The rows get longer every minute, like the tail of a snake. So whole families work there? They have to. They get paid by the piece. They have to make 1,200 bricks to earn 1,000 rupees. Earn 100 rupees. 100 rupees? That's a lot of money. Well, that's what I thought too, but listen. We got out of the trucks and approached a family, and Ashan Khan told them who we were and what we were there for. The man didn't even lift his head. He was crouched on the ground, and every 30 seconds he turned out a brick. He was dirty. His hair and beard were full of clay. But Ashan Khan insisted. The man never looked up or stopped working. He just murmured, "For the love of God, brother, get out of here." I swear it made me want to cry. It's always terrible to see a little child working in inhuman conditions. We know what that's like. But this was worse, because this time it was a man, a grown-up, a father, and I don't know. What? Well, he didn't seem like a man anymore. He didn't have anything anymore. Like all of them, there they were in the early morning light, crawling along the rows of bricks. Now I know why Salma refused to talk about the work in the brick factory. I moved away from the others and got closer to the hole, and I spoke to the children. But at first they didn't want to answer me like their father. And then the eldest, about my age, started to talk, all the time digging with a hoe and pouring in water. He was covered with mud from head to his heels. What'd he tell you? That there were 6 of them in the family, and then on lucky days they even managed to make 1,500 bricks, if the clay wasn't too hard, if there was water in the well, if only a few bricks broke in the heat of the sun, because broken bricks don't count. And that on some day they earned 120 rupees, but it wasn't enough. Why not? Because they had to pay rent for the hut that they lived in. The boy explained this to me. He pointed to a low, narrow building next to the kiln, and he told me that each family has a hut 3 meters by 3, with a small cooking stove, some cots, and a window without glass. They have to pay the master for everything. They have to pay for the coal they burn and the food they eat, and everything costs a lot. And once they've brought grain for bread and some lentils and onions and a small bottle of some oil and vegetables, nothing is left out of their day's earnings. The family had an enormous debt, but they weren't able to pay back a single rupee. The boy told me he'll inherit the debt from his father, and his children will inherit it from him. And then he said, "Go away. The Munchie, the director, will arrive in a few minutes, and he does not like to see people here." So what did you say, Iqbal? I didn't know what to say. And then I caught a glimpse of their feet, his and his brother's. I looked away quickly, but the youngest, who was about 4 or 5 years old, noticed and started to laugh. "Look," he said. The soles of his feet had a 2-inch black callus all cracked. When the kiln starts, they have to climb on top with baskets of coal and pour it into the hole in the middle to get the fire going. "The kiln is like a dragon," the boys said. "It eats and eats, but it's never satisfied. You should hear how it grumbles, and then it spits flames." "And doesn't it burn you?" I asked. "Well, of course it burns," he answered. And I couldn't think of anything else to say to him. I'd never seen Iqbal so depressed. All the men had come back grim and discouraged that day, even Ashan Khan, who was always optimistic and ready to smile. "And then, what happened?" I asked him, even if I already knew, because the word had spread as soon as they got back. The Munchie arrived in a big car, and when he saw us talking to the workers, he got very angry. He yelled at us to go away. Ashan Khan explained who we were and told him that we had the right to speak to these people, that they were free. The Munchie just yelled louder. That always happens. So you know that then we weren't worried. And then the Munchie ran into a green iron hut. It was his office, the only building with electric light. We could see the wires. We thought maybe he was going to phone someone, his partners, or maybe the police. Ashan Khan told us to stick together, that they couldn't do anything to us. And then the Munchie came out of the hut with something dark in his hand, and he stretched his arm out towards us. He had a gun. We heard the first shot while we were scattering through the clearing, while we slid into the mud, while we were looking for a way out of there. He shot and screamed insults at us, and I didn't think he'd ever stop. He was shooting to kill, and it's a miracle that nobody got hurt. We got back in the vans and the trucks and drove away fast. It's the first time that's ever happened. Later on, toward evening, Iqbal and I were waiting to be called to dinner. The usual sounds of the street came in through the window. "This hasn't changed a thing, Iqbal," I said. "I know. We'll keep on working." There was something else he wanted to say to me. He lowered his voice to a whisper. A truck was passing down the street, and I could barely hear him. "I was scared, Fatima, but please, don't tell anybody." I put out my hand to touch his shoulder, but then I pulled it back. I felt shy. "Dinner time," Ashan Khan's wife was calling. "Don't worry," I said very softly. "I won't tell anyone." That was one of our last long conversations, because a few weeks later, Iqbal departed, and I went home. I wish I had been brave enough to actually touch him.